Hi guys, welcome to another episode on Rancor Exotics. And today I'm very excited to talk about one of my most favorite animals in the whole world here, and that is the Smaug Giganteus, and this is the giant Sungazer lizard. Now, if you have any other recommendations on any other animal to talk about, it being a reptile, amphibian, insect, you let me know and I'll look into it and see if they're cool enough for me to review. I do like focusing on things that are a little more exotic and harder to find. So if you have any suggestions, please leave a comment and I'll look into it. And while you're down there, you can like and subscribe. So the Smaug Giganteus, the Smaug is referring to Tolkien's fire-breathing dragon. So that kind of gives you a hint on how cool this animal looks. It looks like a bearded dragon was thinned down and given a more monitor looking shape. However, they increased the amount of spikes on the animal. It looks absolutely wicked, absolutely awesome. Now, of course, this animal has captured the hearts of people all around the world, and so everyone everywhere wants one of these. So there's really high demand for this species. Of course, there's a lesser species called the dwarf Sungazer, and those will look a little different. They don't look as aggressive as the giants. However, those are also available, and I will probably be making a sister video along with this one talking about them as well, because that's the more feasible option compared to these guys. Now, the giant Sungazer comes from the sub-Saharan plains from Africa, the grasslands, where this lizard is like it forms little tunnels, not tunnels, but little burrows, and they live in groups, little cliques where individuals come and go in between groups. So this is a very social lizard. They eat they're insectivores, and they scavenge other types of foodstuffs that are around. So overall, this is a very interesting lizard. It looks absolutely rad, and it has social behavior as well, which is awesome. So let's bring that in a little bit. Let's say you got a hold of these guys, a hold of somebody that sells them, and maybe you got a pair lined up for you. Alright, so let's talk about a setup for these guys. The minimum requirement for a pair of Sungazers, of giant Sungazers, would be a 5 foot by 5 foot enclosure, focusing mostly on terrestrial. Of course, if you give them rocks and other stuff to climb onto, they'll probably more than be willing to take advantage of that. However, they like a terrestrial base enclosure. For lighting, these guys need a very hot spot of 150 degrees Fahrenheit or 66 degrees Celsius. It's a very hot spot. Now, of course, since, like I said, this is a social creature, and you'll probably most likely need to keep these guys in, groups. Your hotspot should not be just one bulb in one little spot, because the lizards are going to crawl over each other for this spot. What you're going to want to do is have several bulbs, or have a bigger heat supply where it covers a larger area. That way the lizards don't have to climb over each other, and they have enough space so that they're able to thermal regulate in the enclosure as well. That's why I really don't get into the lows of this species, because with a hot spot of 150 degrees, the whole enclosure really is at gradients already. And of course, if you provide the next thing in the things you need, it really does help the lizard thermoregulate, and that is a thicker substrate. This species is known to make burrows where several individuals will live. So giving them a thick enough substrate for them to feel comfortable digging in would probably be a huge plus for their comfort and reduce their stress. Of course, feasibly, it's really hard to give them an extremely thick layer of substrate without it becoming an issue. However, the thicker you can give it to them, the better. At the minimum, 5 to 6 inches of substrate. If you can give them more, that'd be absolutely ideal. Now, this is going to be a very arid enclosure, probably sand, not calcium sand, of course, because that tends to impact, but a mixture of sand and other types of dirt like coconut coir and other stuff, really will help create a nice substrate that they're able to dig into without having a potential problem of them impacting themselves from eating sand. Now, husbandry. I love this species so much because they look cool and they don't require any type of special care. Of course, they need 10.0 UVB. However, they're a desert species, and quite frankly, it's a given for this, for a desert species that's diurnal. They need UVB. However, when it comes to their diet, there's nothing really special, nothing really surprising, and that's great because you don't have to worry about having to feed them anoles or toads or things like that. These guys are insectivores. From crickets, locusts, mealworms, superworms, anything big enough for anything insect and big enough for them to be a good sized meal is fair game. Of course, you're going to want to dust these guys with calcium, D3, and multivitamin. However, that's a standard. These guys they have been known to forage and eat things like berries and fruits, and you can give this species that as a treat maybe once a month, very sparingly, as well as mammalian prey like maybe a rat or a mouse. So really nothing surprising. It's like a bearded dragon without the grains. If you're planning to get these guys, racking up a big bill with insects really shouldn't be a problem because these guys are pretty pricey. We'll talk about that a little later. So let's talk about breeding. So these guys don't demand a lot for their enclosure. They don't demand a lot for their diet. However, their breeding is really hard. A lot of zoos and private keepers really just haven't dialed in on how to have these guys breed in captivity. There's been very little to no success, unfortunately. So this means that a lot of the animals available on the market are wild caught, and some of them are wild caught illegally, unfortunately. So for breeding these guys, let's say you do have a pair lined up from a sustainable source, let's say. So to give them the best chance at reproducing, you're gonna have to mimic their native habitat condition throughout the year. So that means a very hot, dry summer, a wet winter, and a higher humidity but a much drier mid-period after that wet season. This would give you your best chance, and it's very slim. Of course, if you're planning to breed, you're going to want more information than just my thin beard opinion, so please do. So let's say you go through the breeding season and you're successful. That's great. This species is viviparous. They don't lay eggs. The female lays live young. She gives birth to live young, so you don't need an incubator and worry about that, which is thank goodness. And that leads me to the best part about this species, besides their rad looking appearance, and that is their social behavior. The parents will not predate on the offspring. Of course, they might. However, they have not been known to. The offspring actually are inclined to stay with the parents because they offer protection. They stay in the burrow with their parents for protection. And so this translates to you don't need to pull the offspring out of the parent's enclosure. I think that it's a better idea to leave them with the parents for them to be less stressed. Of course, you're going to need to provide a food dish with appropriately sized prey items for the offspring because they're going to be substantially smaller. However, that's a given. So let's talk about availability. here, because you know this is on the basis of you having a pair of Sungazers lined up, right? Well, that pair of Sungazers will probably cost you around $10,000, because the last available listing that I saw was years ago, and they were going, that one individual was selling for $5,000. So these guys are just not readily available at all. When they go up on sale, you could probably expect a fist fight to occur of money of people just trying to get a hold of these animals, because they're just that rare. They're just not hard to find, especially here in the States. In Europe and Asia, it might be a little easier, because again, unfortunately, people rip these animals from the wild illegally without permits or respect to any type of regulation on the trade of the animal, and they offer them illegally in Europe and Asia. So unfortunately, fortunately, they are more available there. Again, if you do get these guys, please let it be from a reliable source that adheres to the laws and policies in place in order to protect these animals. So please do. So overall availability, again though, it's all demand and almost no supply, unfortunately. So if you do, you know, magically get your hands on some of these guys, please have the focus on breeding, you know, research into breeding and sharing what you found with the community, learning about these guys via zoos, because I know a lot of zoos have tried to breed these guys with little to no success. So please share the little information that you can gather and generate. So overall, a beautiful animal. It looks like a dinosaur. The spikes, I've heard that when they were younger, they're a little more high strung and energetic. However, if you keep on them and you do hold them, they'll eventually tame out and they'll become much more handleable. Of course, these guys have been known to tail whack, and their tail is actually looks painful. It looks like it will do some damage because of the spikes. However, if you start small, I'm sure by the time they get to their adult sizes that it really won't be an issue. Beautiful animal. Unfortunately, this animal is a victim to its circumstances. It just doesn't breed well enough for the pet industry for it to really, you know, establish itself and form breeder groups in captivity, and people have to rip them out of the wild to get a hold of one. I don't believe that should be the case. I believe that if you have to rip them out of the wild in order to have them as a pet, they should not be kept as a pet. We should be able to keep them in captivity and breed them in captivity in order to justify ripping them out of their natural habitat, right? So overall, this lizard is absolutely wicked. That's why I think it's my inception lizard, because I'll have it in the dream. That's when the dream, or in the dream where they were able to breed, and in the other dream where they're bred enough so, you know, people like me are able to get a hold of them. So overall, it's an awesome looking lizard, and even though I can't have them, it's awesome and rad just knowing that they're out there, you know. This species is absolutely cool. The way it, you know, just looks up at the sun and the posturing it does. I think it's one of the unique animals in the world that really need to have, you know, its time in the sun, right? A little spotlight. So that's been the Sungazer lizard, the giant Sungazer lizard, the Smaug Giganteus. So if you like the video, leave a like, comment, subscribe. I'm always here. I come out with a care video. I'm trying to do that once a week, and another week another video with herp talk, whether I talk about genetics or something else, my opinion in the hobby. So if you like what I'm doing, leave a like, subscribe, follow, all that YouTuber good stuff. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for listening.